and hopefully you're all saying that. So I'm going to go over some ground that I know will be familiar to one or two of you because there's some people here that we've worked extensively with in the past, but for others, I hope there's something new to say. So this is, one of the regular set of OA member lightning talks where we say something about our organisation. So in the next 10 minutes, I hope to give you a bit of a feel for what the DCC is and what we do and how we go about it. So I'll begin with a little bit of history. We were established in the UK as a national focus for issues around curation in data curation and all forms of research in 2004. So actually celebrating our 20th anniversary this year. Our role then was to have expertise, to provide services and guidance and training, to do some research and to run some events around data curation, but with a very broad interpretation of what data meant as applicable in the arts and humanities as in the sciences. And I think it was the first organization probably of that particular type, and we rapidly gained a pretty broad international profile. And from its outset, the DCC was collaborative by design. It's a consortium, and I'll say a little more about that in a moment. And we had engagement primarily with universities in the UK, but also elsewhere with national bodies and with international organizations. So from that beginning 20 years ago, that national role has gone away, and indeed so did the national funding. What we now have are 6 broad areas of activity, and I'll say a little more about each of these later on. So they're online services, the development, delivery of training, consultancy, research projects. I'll put research in quotes there because they're often not primary research. They're often what are called support actions in EC terminology, helping people use the benefits of research that others have done. We run events and we produce publications. Most of those earn us income in one way or another. Some of those, the publications in particular, our staff development and other things, are effectively funded from the surplus we gain in those other areas of activity. So right now, as I said, we're a consortium. We have staff employed by the universities of Edinburgh and Glasgow, 18 of them at the moment. It's a very international group. I think about 60-70% of the staff, their origins from outside the UK. The work itself is collaborative. We work with partners in 5 continents so far. And all our work, bar the consultancy work, which tends to be, for an individual organization, but all the rest of our work is openly licensed. The code, the training materials, the publications, and that's been a principle we followed throughout, certainly through my 14 years with the DCC. We think it's important really not just to be telling other people to work openly, but to demonstrate how to do that and to demonstrate that it can be done without damaging what many people fear open working will do. We have diverse sources of income, all those different areas of activity. And certainly one of the things we're trying to demonstrate with that open working is that the ability of us to earn income is not from the intellectual property itself. That's not where that lies. It's the skills and the abilities of our staff and the ways that we can use that intellectual property that people want to come to us for. So a slide each now on each of those different areas of activity. Training. So we develop and we deliver training covering lots of aspects of open research and data management and policy and related issues. We do that for researchers, for research support staff, and even for funders. So a number of years ago, for instance, we did training for project officers in the European Commission on the EC's own policy on openly licensed research data, on data management plans and things such as this, so that they could evaluate research projects in line with that funder's new policy. So we're typically doing that for individual organizations. We do also run some open courses, and we do get some repeat customers who asked us to come back over a number of years to train new staff. Much of that work is now online. Obviously, once upon a time, it was pretty much all in person. And we've also done some work developing MOOCs, again, sometimes on our own and others in collaboration with other organizations, such as FIRT-EU, where Daniel, who's with us today, is from. That training is often combined with consultancy. We often find that somebody who approaches us looking for one thing, approaching us with what appears to be a consultancy problem, actually needs some training. People who approach us looking for training actually really need some advice about how to do things. These things are very mixed up. And the synergy, as there is with lots of areas of work, with the project work, particularly on skills and capabilities, which we've done quite a good deal of. The consultancy work is quite varied and it comes and goes. It's much more episodic. I think the other types of work, we've done that for all types of research performing organizations, not just universities, and also for national and international bodies. They range from small pieces of work for a few days of £5,000 up to things that last a year or more, with a lot of staff involved. And a lot of that we don't do alone. It's collaborative with other organizations, sometimes where we need to reach out to somebody else because a piece of work needs skills that we haven't got, and sometimes because other people approach us for exactly the same reasons, but they've got a lead to do something and they need the kind of expertise that we can deliver. And again, strong synergy with other areas of work. Sometimes we can do a good consultancy job because we've learned through the training, through the project work we've done, what particular organizations need. But often consultancy work lets you get inside an organization in a way that you often don't get the opportunity to do that. You learn a lot about why some things succeed, why some things fail, and that can feed back into the other work that we do. I mentioned we run online services. The main one that we earn income from is something called DMP Online. So that's a service to help produce, maintain, review, comment on data management plans. It's free to use for researchers from anywhere. What we sell is a service to organizations or to national bodies or consortia, which helps them either provide advice specific to their research community or to be able to develop workflows that help them do things like comment on data management plans before they go to funders. We've got over 60 customers for that at the moment. It's about 35% of our income. And that's also the code development there is a collaborative effort. It's open source. Anyone can run it. Indeed, a number of other organizations do that. The Canadian National Service, for instance, uses that. But there's still, again, what people are paying for there is not the code, it's the service that we provide around it. We're continually developing integrations with that, with things like funder portals, and what certainly in Europe we usually refer to as CRIS, Current Research Information Systems. I think in other parts of the world there are different acronyms that refer to the same things that research offices use to manage information about research. And the thing that I refer to as research projects, in quotes, really support projects, usually funded at the moment by the European Commission and also UKRI, which is the national research funder in the UK. We've usually got about 2 or 3 of these active at any one time, and they draw from, as I mentioned before, and feed into all that other work, the consultancy, the training, and the events. By their very nature, these are always highly collaborative. I mean, it's not unusual for some of these to have 50 partners involved. And there's the logos of 2 current ones we're involved in at the bottom there. Both European Commission funded their Fair Impact, which is helping people make use of tools for things like fair data assessment, and Skills for EOSC, which is focusing on the development and identification of skills for all of those involved in different areas of open research in Europe. And events, we run an annual conference once a year, the International Digital Curation Conference. The most recent of those was in Edinburgh. There's occasional national events. There's a thing we've run occasionally called RDMF, the Research Data Management Forum. That typically focuses on a specific question. You bring a small group of people, up to 50 together for a single day, to address that more in a workshop-like environment with a small number of talks to set the scene. And the idea of that is you want to come out with outputs and actions that people can take. And we've done other one-off hosting. We, for instance, hosted the virtual plenary that became P17, that should have been a plenary in person in Edinburgh. And we've also provided support for many of the RDA plenaries before and after that time. And we've run those not everywhere in the world yet, but certainly in a number of continents in Europe, in North America, Africa, and Australia. We aim to get a modest surplus from those, not a huge amount, but to feed into those other areas of activity. And some of those photographs might indicate occasionally may involve cakes and or music. But there's also serious work as well. And finally, the publications. As I said, we primarily fund through the surplus we get from the other bits of activity. It supports our other work, and we hope it maintains our reputation as a source of information and advice. And some examples of some of those there, you can find them all on our website under the guidance section. How to appraise and select research data. That's now, I think, 12 years old, but still current and still used by many people. That was a collaborative work with what was then the Australian National Data Service, now ARDC, using RISE as a tool to self-assess research data management services in organizations, making the case for research data management, which helps people convince their management to invest funds and effort in that, and our checklist for a data management plan. And we also host a journal, which is both free to access and free to publish in the International Journal of Digital Curation. And we depend on our colleagues in the Edinburgh Library who run a service to support open access publications there. So I mentioned just a few logos there of some of the organizations we work with. I won't go into detail, but I'll end really by talking about why is DCC involved in IDA? What does it mean to us? We were a founding member of the Organizational Assembly. I can remember the time when Mark Parsons first talked about setting this up and asked if people were interested. I think it was a paper form we had to fill out then, and we were keen to get hold of that. And the reason really is that RDA helps us achieve things through collaboration that would be difficult, if not impossible, without RDA existing. I sometimes say we'd have to invent RDA if it wasn't already there, but we do a very bad job of inventing it. Luckily, somebody else invented something so much better. And just two examples, the metadata standards directory work. So that's now a succession of working groups have been working on that. At the time of the very first plenary, we had actually just finished work on an early version of that. I was really worried about how we were going to sustain that. It had been far more effort to create than we'd expected. Jane Greenberg at that first plenary wanted to get a group together to do exactly that work. And I was able to say to her, well, we've done something actually. We'd love to be able to work with a group of other people really to improve it, to make it better, to sustain it. And that is now really something we've been able to let go of. Other people are now taking that work forward. And that to me is the ideal way of sustaining something. And the work we've done with colleagues in producing a common standard for the encoding and transmission of data management plans is another area. So for us, we learn a great deal from others at RDA as well. It's also one of the induction processes I use for new staff. I feel we get incredible value from our RDA subscription. It pays for itself many, many times over. And I think that's all I've got to say. I don't know if there's any questions about any of that. I hope I've kept to time.
Rafael, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Kevin. First of all, I'd like to congratulate you to the 20th anniversary, and I would just like to support and illustrate the value of what you are doing. I've had the privilege to work with you and colleagues for more than a decade now, I think. Mm-hmm. And I think you've been quite modest in how you've presented things. I would just like to convey the message to others here that may not be as much involved with you and your organization as we have certainly been in Germany. Not only in the context of RDA, but also, for instance, in shaping our national research data infrastructure. You've been a very valued reviewer and contributed a lot to shaping things. I think the organization that you've succeeded in setting up is really world leading and much referred to, and the expertise that you and your colleagues gained over the past years is much appreciated by many of us and beyond, I would like to say.
I'm blushing here, Rafael. Thank you very much for those kind words. But just that example you gave about the German, the the national data research infrastructure there. It's been great to see that happening. And York, gave the lightning talk at the last meeting was indeed about that, and York Curation. But for us, again, we've learned so much from the way you've done that in Germany. I think there you've taken your time to set something up, and now I think others can learn a great deal from that example. So yeah, I hope it's always a two-way street. We hope you can give something, and we hope we get something back in return as well.